to write you a song you could sing forever, and I wanted to rhyme and to bend phrase and time into something clever.
The other thing I want to say is, you had said in the Hangout that I'm not a sinner. I'm not a sinner. I have bad news for you, Robin. You are a sinner. Because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You're no exception in this case. If you've ever told a lie, you've broken that commandment. That makes you a sinner, because sin is the transgression or the breaking of God's law, according to 1 John. So you've broken his laws, whether you like it.
Once upon a time, this is actually, I think I was a teenager. I went to visit my favorite Aunt Evie in Portland. Actually, she lived in a little ways out of Portland. And she was a great lady. She had a small farm when she was younger. She collected dolls. She collected model horses. I mean, she was like a kid at heart, even though she was old. And I kind of hope that when I'm her age, which I'm rapidly getting there, I'm the same way. I don't ever want to get old. I never want to be anybody other than who I am. And it distresses me because I am getting old. I have an old neck now. I've gained weight in very bizarre places. Taking the antidepressants causes people to gain weight. I know this for a fact now because this lady that I work with at Home Depot, she and I got into a conversation, and she told me how much weight she's gained since she went on meds, and she's on something completely different. Anyway, so it's depressing. It's depressing fighting depression because you gain weight. That and the fact that you kind of stop caring as much about stuff, and so you don't care anymore what people think, which is, in a way, it's a good thing. But anyway, I'm getting old. Fact of life. But I don't feel any older inside, but I hear my voice starting to get older, and I don't like that. It's taking on a whole different kind of tone. I don't even want to go look at my older videos because I bet my voice sounds different. Or, maybe nobody else would notice the differences, but I think I would. But anyway, I was visiting my favorite Aunt Evie, and she would have been in her 80s by now when I visited her, because I was married. Me and my husband went to visit her, and when she was in her 80s, she no longer had the farm. But she was still the same major cool person that she had been all her life, that I had known her. And we got on the subject of religion. And she told me flat out, straight to my face, that she'd never sinned. She never sinned. Here she is, she's an old lady. And she told me, I've never sinned. I've never sinned. I was a Christian when I was talking to her. And we got on the subject of the whole, being saved and not going to hell, I've never sinned. Question, the statement she said just threw me a loop. I remember just looking at her, like, how could anybody actually say those words, And when I went home, I had to tell my mom this, because my mom is the major, religious person in my life. This is before she went nuts. And I told her, how could anybody say that? Actually say that and mean it? Well, fast forward to present time. I totally get Evie now. And I wish I was still alive. I wish I was still alive. It's morning. Actually, I'm dead right now. Did I forget to mention that? Yeah, it's really sad. I died last night. I'm a zombie. Yes, you're crazy. I thought what I would do is film myself I'm trying to think of the word. Anyway, never mind. I'm really in a weird mood. I just had coffee. I have to go to work in an hour and a half on a weekend. I have to work Saturdays and Sundays now. Anyway, so now that she's dead. I wish I had gotten it earlier when she was still alive. Is what I was trying to say. But I understand now when she said, "I've never sinned." So I ventured to listen a little bit more to what's his face's after show, or his comments to the atheists that were in his show. And I listened to the comments that he made to Robin. First of all, he accuses her of coming in with her nose in the air, thinking she's superior to him. Wow. This coming from the one who was sitting back just biding his time waiting to preach to all those lost sinners that he was talking to. And he's accusing her of having her nose in the air and looking down on everybody else, or looking down on him, I should say. Anytime you preach at somebody like you think that they are broken and need fixing and you have the magical fix, you're the one judging. You're the one looking down on the other person as being inferior somehow to you. And you're the one with all the answers. You're the one who knows everything. You're the one that's going to fix them. So I'm sorry, but the one who had the nose in the air would be the one preaching to the others like he has the magical answers to all their life's problems. So anyway, I disagree with that comment that he made. And then he said to her that she was a sinner, even though she said she'd never sinned. I'm going to play that clip because I keep rambling and there's no time to play the clip. So I'm going to play the clip about the anyway, and then I'll come back.
Bound to be judged by them. And you will be judged by that standard, by the lie that you've told. Jesus said, if you look with lust, you commit adultery in your heart. If you've been angry, you've committed murder. If you've ever taken God's name in vain, the Bible says that you are an enemy of God. So Robin, bad news. You are a sinner who desperately needs to get downwind from yourself and realize that. And when you realize that, look to the cross and see the kindness of God, so that you don't have to experience his wrath for all of eternity. Look to the cross and see the kindness of God.
According to the Bible, according to some phrases in the Bible, what I want to know is, if the Bible isn't true, see, we know God exists because the Bible says so. We know that this is God's law, and we need to obey God's law because the Bible says so. He says that a lot. If you listen to him, he says that a lot, repeatedly. The Bible says. Yeah, in fact, here.
The Bible sin, the Bible sin, the Bible sin, the Bible sin, the Bible.
See what I mean? Repeatedly. and it's like, he doesn't ever stop to explain why the Bible is what it says is valid or important or necessarily means anything to us. Okay, it's a book. I understand that. But what sets it apart from any other book? It says this, okay, there's probably a lot of books out there that say things. So why does what this book say have any more significance to people? This book says that all have sinned, so that's something we're supposed to believe because this book says. See, the way I look at it is everybody has done things that they regret. Everybody's made mistakes. Everybody has put themselves ahead of somebody else and hurt somebody else out of self-centeredness or, selfishness or whatever. Everybody's used somebody else somehow. Everybody has wronged somebody somehow. Everybody has talked badly against somebody. Everybody has lied to somebody somehow, either deliberately to get something or to save somebody from having hurt feelings. Everybody has lied. Everybody has been angry. And no, that doesn't mean you've killed somebody. You can be angry at somebody, and that doesn't mean you've killed somebody. See, this is what the Bible does. It stokes the fire of guilt. It wants to take every little wrong thing that you've done, which you know is wrong, and you feel badly, and if you're a good person, you try to make amends. You try to go up to the person and apologize, or maybe you work harder next time to not do that same thing again. You know, you just try not to lie. If you're a chronic liar, you work on not lying anymore. You know, because lying is a hurtful thing to do. I've lied to people, and I regret it because it's a hurtful thing to do. That's enough. And what do you do when you regret it and you know it's a bad thing? And you can't go back and undo the mistake. But you go forward and you try not to do it again. You learn from the mistake and you try not to do it again. And maybe if it's possible to make amends with the person that you hurt, you do that. That's what you do. People deal with what they do wrong all the time. They deal with the consequences. Maybe they lose a friend because of it. That's a consequence. They learn from their mistake. Or maybe they don't like how being a liar or being angry all the time makes them feel. So they work harder to not be those things or feel those things or react that way. But the Bible, which we keep invoking, Matthew 4:19 keeps invoking, is a simple book written by people who want to control lives. And what they want to do is control people with guilt. They want to say, if you make one single mistake and you don't come crawling to the church with your money and you're begging the church, aka God, but they say God. They put this God up there and say that he exists, and we're all supposed to grovel and beg and give the church money and do all the things that they say we have to do to have that bad thing that we feel guilty about removed from our heads. See, they take something that is a natural human thing, making judgment errors, doing things that we regret because we're humans, and they magnify it. They say if you're angry, it's the same as murder, and you're going to deserve to die. You're going to die anyway, but you deserve to suffer for all eternity in fire. They come up with the worst imaginable torture, painful torture they can come up with, which is fire. Everybody knows that being burned alive is probably the most painful thing that can happen to anybody. So they pick that one. They don't say you're going to be in hell drowning forever, or you're going to be in hell asphyxiated, I don't know if I said that right, forever, or you're going to be in hell starving to death forever. They don't say that. They say you're going to be in hell burning forever, which is kind of the, burning and stoning. Those are the choice ways of executing people back then. So that, of course, they're going to pick one of those too. I think being stoned to death is probably pretty close as far as the amount of pain. But anyway, forever. They come up with the scariest and most horrific imaginable way of dying, and that's what they say is hell. So you're terrified, and oh my gosh, I don't want to have that forever. Oh no, what do? You run to them like you run to the doctor when you're hurting and you want them to fix it. You run to them, help me fix it, because they're the ones that have read this thing, because back in the olden days they didn't let the average person read the Bible. It was only something that the learned whatevers got to read, and these poor peasants were at the mercy of whatever these people said. So they still want us to be at their mercy. They still want us to think that they have all this authority and that their authority is based on this book, except there's a big difference now. We can read the book. We can look at it objectively and not through what they paint it out to be. We can look at it and say, you know what? This is not what I thought it was. That's what happened to me, and that's why I'm not a Christian anymore. It's just a book. Before Matthew 4:19 can start invoking it and saying, well, the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says. He needs to explain to people why that book has any validity. Not sure that's a word, but it sure sounds good, doesn't it? Why that book is significant in any way, shape, or form. It's a book. I have a lot of books, and there's a lot of books that I think are better written, and there's more wisdom to them. If you're religious and you're a spiritual person and you think Jesus lived and you think Jesus is a role model, you know what is even, if you want to get pearls of wisdom, you don't find it in the Bible. There's a little book, I think it's called The Imitation or In Imitation of Christ. It is a profound book. When I was a Christian, I had that, and I read that. I would try to read a couple pages of that when I did my devotions, which I found to be so much more inspiring and moving and uplifting than anything anywhere in the Bible. So, if you're a Christian and you want to read something that is really going to move you, that's the book to read. Fuck the Bible. Read, if that's the path you're on, that's the book to read. An Imitation of Christ. Now, I disagree with it because now that I've read the whole Bible and looked at it differently, I don't think Christ was a good role model. So I would change the title of that book to In Imitation of a Really Good Person. Whoever a really good person that that actually lived in history, substitute that person's name or put that person's name in there, or imagine that person's name instead of Christ. Anyway, excellent book for people who are looking for words of wisdom as far as how to live your life and how to be a good person. And I didn't read the whole thing, so maybe it's not all wonderful, but the stuff I read in there was pretty amazing. So it too is a book, but we're not going to say, well, because this book says, but somehow the Bible's and what it says is supposed to have this huge weight. It's supposed to govern us. It's supposed to tell us that we deserve to be tortured forever because this book says so. And unless we do what this book says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. He says it like it's a fact. Matthew 4:19 says it like it's a fact. He's quoting a sentence from a book like it's a fact. He hasn't shown any proof that a God exists. He says this is God's law. Okay, but show us that a God exists. Before it means anything saying it's God's law, you need to show that a God exists. And before what the Bible says has any significance whatsoever, you have to show that it is from God and not just a piece of whatever written by a bunch of anonymous writers hired by the church or put together by the church who went around going, oh, well, this fits our agenda, let's put this in, this promotes this, and we want women to be less than men, so let's put this in. That's just basically what it is. It's a bunch of stuff that was hand selected by people who wanted to start a religion, and this is what they wanted their followers to believe. So no, I don't think the Bible has any authority. You have to come up with something better than that. Matthew, Matt, Len, whatever your name is, you have to come up with something better than that before you start accusing people of being sinners. Sin is invented by the religion. It's the religion that came up with that concept. The concept of sin is breaking God's law. Well, if there's no such thing as God's law, then there's no such thing as sin. And if God doesn't exist, there's no such thing as God's law, is there? And if God doesn't exist, then the Bible wasn't inspired by a God, was it? It's just a book. So again, it's all back to, well, does God exist? You can't say, well, you haven't shown that God doesn't exist. No, so does that mean, atheists haven't shown that unicorns don't exist. Atheists haven't shown that leprechauns don't exist. Atheists haven't shown that fairies don't exist. So does that automatically mean those things exist? Okay, atheists haven't shown that your God doesn't exist. What's the difference? Until you show that he does exist, he is just as non-existent as these other things. The fact that we can't show he doesn't exist doesn't make him exist. I can't show a lot of things don't exist. There's a hot peach cobbler pie right now, and it's in the orbit around the planet Earth. It's hot. It's steamy hot. It smells wonderful. And after I get off this video, I'm going to shoot right up there and have myself a piece. You can't show that pie doesn't exist, so, it exists. And I'm looking forward to having some of that. Anyway, so I don't think there's such a thing as sin. I have never sinned either. I totally agree with that. Robin gets it. Robin is coming from the same place that my Aunt Evie was. She gets it. Sin is a made-up thing. It is the wound that they create in you so that they can hand you the bandage that is the religion. They make you think you're injured and you need a bandage. You're not injured. You never needed the bandage. That's the thing. That's what that gives them the power over you, is they make you think there's something wrong with you. They make you think you're injured and bleeding, and they have the bandage. They create the injury, and then they want to give you the bandage. So, until you show that there's a God, until you show that the Bible is inspired by God and not just another book amongst billions and billions of books, until you show that there's, telling people that they're sinners, telling people stuff, laying guilt on people, and telling them they're going to burn forever and that they deserve to burn forever because a book says, is rude, it's wrong, it's mean, it's evil. Laying guilt trips on people, making people feel like there's something wrong with them is evil. We have enough on our own. We don't need that too. Saying that there's consequences for what you do in this life, in the next life. Maybe so, if there's such a thing as an afterlife. But I don't honestly think there is. I think that, and walking around believing that you're just going to die and that's it, might be more inspiring for you to be a good person in this life and work your best in this life to treat others the way they would want to be treated, and just work on being a better person and work on not making the same mistakes again, rather than thinking, oh well, I can just ask for forgiveness at the end of this life and everything will be wiped clean. Work on being now. Work on yourself now. Work on being the kind of person you want to be now. And telling people that they're sinners without having anything to prove that there's even such a thing as sin. No, they're not sinners. They're just human beings who've done things wrong in their life, like every other human being. And it's how you treat the situation when you do something wrong that sets you apart. Either you're a good person or you're a bad person. It all depends on how you treat others and how you treat your own mistakes. Anyway, I'm starting to feel like I'm preaching now, but I wish I could go back in time and tell Evie how much she how I get it now, because she was a great lady, and it's funny that I had to find that out after she died, just how wise she was. So anyway, if you've been watching, thank you. Bye.